Israeli strikes kill 67 people on the first day of Ramadan celebrations. "200 tons of food departed from Cyprus to Gaza as aid."
Ukrainians hope the Oscar-winning documentary 20 Days in Mariupol will drive much-needed Western aid.
Israeli airstrikes killed at least 67 people in Gaza on the first day of Ramadan, according to the Gazan Health Ministry. The strikes continue as hundreds of Palestinians begin celebrating Ramadan, a month normally associated with joy and celebration. UNRWA has called for a ceasefire during the month of Ramadan, citing widespread hunger and calling the situation in the north of Gaza tragic. It is estimated that around 80% of Gaza's population have been displaced since the start of the war, and supplies of food and water are scarce, with many families living off one meal a day. In response to the first day of Ramadan, Egypt has delivered aid via air into northern Gaza. An aid shipment with around 200 tons of food set sail from Cyprus to Gaza on Tuesday. The shipment is a test for the opening of a sea corridor to supply aid to the territory. Charity World Food Kitchen announced the ship set sail on Tuesday. The United States has announced separately that it plans to construct a sea bridge near Gaza in order to deliver aid. Aid groups have warned that starvation is spreading across Gaza, and in some areas it remains nearly impossible to deliver aid.
Moscow installed occupation authorities opened early voting in temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine for Russia's presidential elections on the 10th of March that will last until the 14th of March. Kremlin news via TASS reported on the 10th of March that early voting started in occupied Donetsk region, but noted that early voting in the areas close to the front line has been going on since the 25th of February. Ukrainian Luhansk region military administration head Artem Lysogor stated that 2,600 so-called Luhansk People's Republic Election Commission officials have been conducting door-to-door campaigning for the past 20 days. According to the Russian Interior Ministry, there are about 2.8 million residents in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine who are now Russian passport holders. Russia makes access to services in these regions, including social services and healthcare, conditional on the receipt of Russian passports. Those who refuse will become foreign citizens or stateless persons starting from the 1st of July 2024. There is a realistic possibility that individuals will be deported or face detention after this date if they don't have Russian passports in what the UK Defence Ministry calls, quote, a relentless Russification policy. The Institute for the Study of War continues to assess that the Kremlin and Russia-installed occupation officials intend to falsify votes in support of Russian President Vladimir Putin and fabricate a large voter turnout in an attempt to legitimize Russia's occupation of Ukraine to the international community.
Ukrainians woke up Monday to the news that the country had won its first Oscar. The documentary 20 Days in Mariupol, a harrowing first-person account of the early days of Russia's invasion in 2022, won the award for Best Documentary Feature on Sunday.
Я сподіваюся, що ця премія надасть поштовх Конгресу нарешті ухвалити такий потрібний для України допомогу військову, щоб ми могли захищатися і відвоювати свою землю і своїх людей.
In the meantime, drone attacks overnight damaged two multi-story buildings, a hotel and a municipal building in the eastern city of Kharkiv. No casualties were reported.
gouvernement a dirigé après conseil des ministres à Soya.
Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry has announced he will resign following weeks of international pressure.
Membre conseil sa yo pral
He made the announcement hours after officials from the Caribbean and the US met to discuss a solution to Haiti's crisis.
For your leadership today, but thank you for your leadership every day.
Law and order in Haiti has collapsed in recent weeks as gangs have attacked the main airport and burned down police stations. Henry is currently stranded in Puerto Rico after being prevented by armed gangs from returning home.
Record temperatures have again caused problems for ski resorts this winter. In a ski Austrian resort, diggers are removing remaining snow from ski slopes to welcome summer sports enthusiasts.
Unser Skibetrieb ist früher vorbei als erwartet. Deswegen sind schon unsere Trailbauteams auf den Pisten und schaufeln die Trails aus, dass wir mit Mountainbiken starten können.
Eine der möglichen Lösungen ist Sommersport. Bei schlechter Schneelage benutzen bereits im März Mountainbiker die Pisten von St. Corona am Wechsel. Andere Aktivitäten sind Sommerrodeln oder Wandern. Mittlerweile generiert das kleine Skigebiet mehr Geld durch Sommer- als Wintersport.
The EU co-founded the Transtat project that connects 9 resorts from Europe that are testing various forms of solutions to combat climate change.
Wir hoffen, dass wir durch den Austausch mit den anderen Skigebieten Dinge lernen, die wir so noch nicht am Schirm haben.
However, it is not just the lack of snow that is being analyzed. Rising property prices due to tourists buying vacation homes is also an issue. In 2 years' time, Transtat will publish a guideline for livable and climate-ready winter sports destinations. Johannes Pleschberger, Euronews.
Some 40 climate activists, including Greta Thunberg, blocked the entrance to the Swedish Parliament on Monday, advocating for sweeping reforms to tackle climate disasters.
The climate justice movement has for decades been repeating the same message over and over again, like a broken record, and we feel like we are not being heard. We are still moving in the wrong direction. We are still heading to a climate catastrophe and making lives even worse for those who are already suffering the consequences of the climate crisis and other social crises.
Here we're protesting because climate change is still not treated as a crisis. Climate justice movement have been demanding for a change for decades now, and we haven't got any.
Climate protesters have accused fossil fuel companies of deliberately slowing down the global energy transition.
NATO is sending a very strong message to Moscow. That is what Jens Stoltenberg, NATO's Secretary General, told Euronews right after Sweden's NATO accession was celebrated in a flag-raising ceremony in Brussels. He also underlined why he considers it is a, quote, historic day.
So NATO membership for Sweden makes Sweden safer. It also makes NATO stronger because Sweden is providing high-end military capabilities, submarines, fighter jets, a well-equipped and well-trained armed forces. So therefore NATO becomes stronger with Sweden as an ally. And we are also sending a very clear message to Moscow that NATO's door remains open. It's not for Moscow or President Putin to close that door. It's for NATO allies and European countries to decide on membership.
Russia has long complained about NATO approaching its borders. The Secretary General says that allies need to be vigilant.
We always have to take the potential threat from Russia seriously. At the same time, we don't see any imminent military threat against Sweden, Finland, or any other NATO ally.
Does this make your life?
Stoltenberg admitted that he feels the concerns from other allies after Donald Trump's recent comments about defense spending.
From the United States, but also from some other allies, there have been some criticism against European allies not investing enough in defense. But I'm confident that US will remain a committed NATO ally also after the US elections, partly because NATO is a good deal for the United States. NATO is important for Europe, but also important for the United States. They have 31 friends and allies, something that Russia, China doesn't have at all. They represent 30...
He explained that now more allies invest more than 2% in defence, which is a totally different reality than just a few years ago, when the majority of NATO allies spent below that. EU member states and lawmakers have provisionally agreed on new rules for platform workers aiming to improve working conditions and regulate the use of algorithms. The deal comes after several member states last month derailed a political agreement that was reached earlier with the European Parliament.
We have to take another fight, I think, in order to ensure that this economy, which is an important economy, doesn't maltreat people systematically, treat them as, day-to-day workers that you can, without sick leave, without, any pension rights, without any rights at all, basically. That we have to put an end to that. This is a first step, but a lot will have to be done at national level, of course.
The rules were first proposed by the Commission in December 2021 to protect workers from apps such as Uber, Deliveroo and Glovo, who are often treated as self-employed despite being under rules similar to ordinary employees.